My name is Cora, and on a rain-slicked Tuesday in early June, at the age of 38, I finally earned my master's degree. It had taken 5 grueling years of night classes, of working a full-time job that had long since lost its luster, of raising two children who were navigating the tumultuous currents of adolescence. I should have been awash with pride as I stood on that brightly lit stage, the velvet-trimmed hood settling over my shoulders. But all I could see, beyond the sea of smiling faces, were the 5 empty seats in the designated family section, hollow absences that echoed the hollowness in my own chest. I clutched the diploma case, its faux leather cool against my trembling fingers, an island of solitude in an ocean of celebration. My achievement, a testament to years of deferred dreams and relentless effort, meant everything to me. To them, it had apparently meant nothing at all. The real gut punch, a deep and twisting ache, came after the ceremony. My phone, which I had silenced for the duration of the event, lit up not with congratulations, but with a single, urgent message from my husband, Julian. That message would unravel the carefully constructed tapestry of my day, and in many ways, my life. For the past 15 years, I had been married to Julian, a 40-year-old landscape architect whose creativity and gentle nature had once been the bedrock of my world. We had 2 children together, Nate, our quiet and intense 15-year-old son, who was finding his solace in the strings of an old guitar, and Lily, our bright, artistic 11-year-old daughter, whose world was a kaleidoscope of charcoal sketches and watercolor dreams. We lived in Sutteridge, a city of bridges and moss, in a modest craftsman home with a sprawling, wild garden that was Julian's pride and joy. It was a comfortable life, not extravagant, but filled with the quiet hum of ordinary days. I worked at Riverbend Capital, a mid-sized investment firm where I had been a financial analyst for nearly a decade. The work was demanding, a cascade of spreadsheets and client reports that often bled into my evenings. I was good at my job, meticulous with numbers and patient with the anxieties of our clients. But year after year, I watched as younger men, colleagues with less experience and a fraction of my dedication, were promoted into the senior roles I coveted. "You need more credentials, Cora," my boss, Mr. Harrison, would say during my annual reviews, his tone a mixture of paternalism and dismissal. A bachelor's in finance is a solid foundation, but in today's market, it's just the starting line. To move into management, you really need an MBA. After the 3rd time I was passed over for a promotion I knew I deserved, a quiet resolve settled in my heart. I would get that Master of Business Administration, no matter the cost. The City University offered an executive program with evening classes designed for working professionals. It would take 5 years of part-time study, a daunting marathon of sacrifice, but I saw it as an investment not just in my career, but in myself. What I hadn't fully anticipated was the sheer, bone-deep exhaustion of it all. My days began at dawn, a quiet ritual of packing lunches and brewing coffee before the house stirred. Then came a full day at Riverbend, followed by a frantic rush across the city to make my 6 o'clock class. I would return home long after dark, weary and overstimulated, to a sink full of dishes and a quiet house where homework still needed checking. Weekends, once reserved for family hikes in the nearby forests or lazy afternoons in the garden, became a blur of research papers and study groups. I would sequester myself in our small home office, the door closed against the sounds of my family's life continuing without me. Mom's always in her study nook. I once overheard Nate complain to his father, his voice laced with a wistful teenage resignation. "She never has time anymore." The words were a small, sharp pain in my chest, but I pushed them down, rationalizing the sacrifice. "This is temporary," I told myself. "This is for our future." Once I had the degree, the promotion, we would have more financial breathing room. Maybe we could finally take that trip to Italy Lily dreamed of, to see the art she so lovingly recreated from library books. My relationship with my older brother, Ethan, added another layer of complexity. At 41, Ethan was the sun around which our family had always orbited. He was a successful restaurateur, a bachelor with a stunning home on the Willamette River, a life of culinary awards, and impromptu trips to Europe. Our parents, who lived in a sunny retirement community in North Carolina, had never bothered to hide their preference for him. Growing up, they had attended every one of his baseball games, marveling at his athletic prowess, while my academic awards were often met with a polite, distracted smile. As adults, they would fly across the country at a moment's notice to help him cater a special event, but would plead inconvenience when I needed help watching the kids during my final exams. "Your brother is just so full of life, honey," my mother once told me, after I had gently confronted her about the imbalance. "You're always so serious, so buried in your responsibilities." The irony that my responsible nature was somehow a character flaw was not lost on me. Despite it all, I persevered. I wrote essays after the children were asleep, fueled by coffee and a quiet desperation, often until the first hints of dawn softened the sky. I studied flashcards on my lunch breaks, memorizing economic theories while the scent of my colleagues' microwaved lunches filled the break room. I sacrificed vacations, using the time off to catch up on coursework. When friends invited us to dinner parties or weekend trips to the coast, I usually declined, the weight of looming deadlines a constant companion. Julian was supportive at first. He picked up the slack at home, cooking more dinners and taking the kids to their activities. But as the years stretched on, a subtle distance grew between us. His encouragement began to feel rote, his patience wearing thin. "How much longer is this going to take?" he'd ask, a note of weariness in his voice. "The kids barely see you." "Just 2 more years," I would assure him. Then 1 more year. Then just a few more months. By the time graduation finally approached, our marriage felt strained, like a rope pulled taut. The love was still there, but it was frayed at the edges. Julian had built a life that ran on a parallel track to mine, a rhythm of community events and visits to his parents that I was rarely a part of. I had missed so many school concerts, soccer games, and spontaneous weekend adventures that it had become the norm for them to function as a trio. That was why the graduation ceremony held such profound significance for me. It wasn't just about the piece of paper or the career it would unlock. It was a chance to bridge the distance, to show my family, especially my children, that all those years of sacrifice had been for something tangible and meaningful. I wanted them to see me walk across that stage, to feel a flicker of pride, to understand that a woman's ambition, a mother's ambition, was a powerful and valid force. I craved that moment of shared celebration, a collective exhale that would make the 5 years of exhaustion worthwhile. When I graduate, I told Julian, about 6 months before my final semester, my voice full of a hope that felt fragile, "I want everyone there. You, the kids, my parents, even my sister Sophie from Austin. This is going to be a big day for all of us." He had nodded, his hand covering mine on the kitchen table. "Of course, Cora," he'd said, his eyes meeting mine. We wouldn't miss it for the world. How hollow those words would come to sound. 6 months before the ceremony, I began to plan. The university had sent a detailed email, and I immediately requested the maximum allotment of 6 guest tickets, 1 each for Julian, Nate, Lily, my mother, my father, and my sister, Sophie. I called my parents in North Carolina, my voice bright with an optimism I was determined to manifest. They dutifully wrote the date on their calendar. "We'll certainly try our best to make it, sweetie," my mother said, her tone carrying a familiar, non-committal air that suggested she was already weighing it against other, more exciting possibilities. Still, I clung to hope. It was my graduation. Surely, this would be a priority. Next, I called Sophie in Austin. Unlike our parents, she was genuinely thrilled. "I am so incredibly proud of you, Cora," she'd gushed. "Working full-time, raising 2 kids, and getting an MBA? You're a superhero. I'll book my flight next week." With my family's attendance seemingly secured, I turned my attention to the celebration. I researched restaurants near the university, finally settling on a place called the Gilded Sparrow, an intimate, highly rated restaurant known for its farm-to-table Italian cuisine. It was expensive. A reservation required a $400 deposit, but this was a once-in-a-lifetime occasion. I paid it without a second thought. For my parents, I booked a lovely suite at the Hawthorne Hotel downtown, using a trove of credit card points I had saved for years. Everything was falling into place, a perfectly orchestrated symphony of recognition. 2 months before the date, I splurged on a new dress. It was a sophisticated sheath of deep emerald green silk, a color that brought out the flecks of gold in my hazel eyes. It was both professional enough for the ceremony and elegant enough for the celebratory dinner. I scheduled appointments for my hair and makeup, small luxuries I rarely afforded myself. I wanted to feel beautiful, to stand a little taller on that day. "Mom, you look pretty," Lily said when I tried on the dress for her, her eyes wide. "Like in those old pictures from when you and Dad got married." Her simple, heartfelt compliment brought a lump to my throat. I couldn't remember the last time I'd dressed up for anything that wasn't a corporate function. 3 weeks before graduation, the first discordant note sounded. Ethan called, a sporadic event that usually meant he had news to share or a favor to ask. After some perfunctory questions about my studies, he dropped his bombshell. "By the way, I'm throwing a massive summer solstice party at my place on June 15th. I just had a new wood-fired pizza oven installed in the backyard, and I want to break it in. You guys should come. The kids would love the river." A cold knot formed in my stomach. "Ethan, that's my graduation day. I told everyone months ago." A beat of silence on the line. "Oh, right. I forgot about that. Can you change the date of your party?" I asked, my voice tight. "Not really," he replied, his tone breezy and unconcerned. "I've already invited, 50 people. Some of my biggest investors are flying in for it. But hey, your ceremony, what time does it end? Maybe you can swing by afterward." My blood began to simmer. "The ceremony is at 2 o'clock, and it will probably go until 5. Then we have dinner reservations at the Gilded Sparrow." "But that's not the point, Ethan. My family is supposed to be at my graduation." "Come on, Corey," he said, using the childhood nickname that always made me feel small. "It's just a graduation. You already did the whole cap and gown thing for your bachelor's. This is just a piece of paper that says you took some extra classes." I was speechless. Just a piece of paper. 5 years of my life, dismissed as some extra classes. Before I could form a response that wasn't laced with fury, he continued. "Look, Mom and Dad are coming to my party. They already booked their flights. They're bringing Aunt Diane and Uncle Robert, who are visiting from Florida. You know how rarely we get to see them." Now I was seeing red. "You told Mom and Dad about your party and let them book flights, even though you knew it was my graduation day?" "I didn't realize it was such a big deal," he said, a defensive edge to his voice. "You're 38, not 22. It's not your first rodeo." The conversation devolved from there. I hung up the phone, shaking with a powerless rage. I immediately called my mother, hoping for a voice of reason. "Mom, Ethan scheduled his party on my graduation day. You can't go to that instead." Her response was a masterpiece of infuriating diplomacy. "Oh dear, what terrible timing. It's just so difficult, Cora. Your aunt and uncle will be here, and you know how your father loves Ethan's parties. Can't we do both?" "No, Mom, you can't do both," I said, my patience fraying. "The timing makes it impossible. I told you about this 6 months ago." That evening, I recounted the infuriating conversations to Julian, my voice thick with unshed tears. He listened, rubbing my back as I paced the kitchen. "Your family has always been like this, Cora," he said, his voice soothing. "But it doesn't matter. You'll still have us there. Me, Nate, and Lily. We'll be your cheering section. That's what's really important, right?" His words were a balm on my wounded spirit. He was right. As long as my husband and my children were there, I could weather the predictable slight from my parents and brother. Julian and the kids had witnessed the daily struggle, the late nights, the stress. They understood. "Promise me," I said, looking into his eyes, needing the certainty of his word. "Promise me you 3 will be there, no matter what." "I promise," Julian replied, kissing my forehead. Nothing could keep us away. I wanted so desperately to believe him. The day before graduation arrived in a flurry of anxious preparation. I picked up my cap and gown, carefully hanging them in our bedroom. I laid out the emerald dress, the shoes, the simple pearl earrings I planned to wear. My excitement was a fragile thing, easily shattered by the persistent hum of anxiety. My parents had sent a joint email, a formal, overly polite missive explaining that they would be attending Ethan's party. They promised to take me out for a special graduation dinner the next time they were in town. I read it, deleted it, and didn't reply. Sophie had also backed out, calling with genuine regret. Her youngest had come down with a nasty case of strep throat, and she couldn't travel. I understood, but it was another empty seat, another chipped piece of my perfect day. "At least I still have you three," I said to Julian as we made dinner that evening. He nodded, his attention focused on his phone. I noticed he'd been texting more than usual, but dismissed it until my own phone rang. It was my mother. "Cora, I just wanted to check if the kids are still coming to Ethan's tomorrow. He's setting up a rope swing over the river and renting a paddleboard." I nearly dropped the colander of pasta. "What?" "No, Mom. The kids are coming to my graduation with Julian." Oh, she sounded genuinely confused. Ethan said Julian mentioned he might bring them. There will be other kids their age. They'd have so much more fun than sitting through a long, stuffy ceremony. My hands trembled as I set down the colander. I looked at Julian, who was suddenly intensely focused on dicing an onion. "Mom, I have to go," I said, and ended the call. The silence in the kitchen was heavy, broken only by the rhythmic chop of the knife. Finally, I spoke. "Julian, why does my mother think you're taking the kids to Ethan's party tomorrow?" He wouldn't meet my gaze. I might have mentioned to Ethan that the kids were asking about it. "They heard about the rope swing." "And you told him you were bringing them?" "Without talking to me." He finally looked up, his expression a frustrating mix of guilt and defiance. "Cora, be reasonable. It's a 3-hour ceremony. Hundreds of names being called. The kids will be bored to tears. So instead of teaching them the value of supporting their family, of celebrating hard work, you'd rather teach them that a party is more important?" My voice was rising, a tidal wave of hurt I couldn't control. "This degree represents 5 years of me sacrificing time with them to build a better life for us. Don't you think it's important for them to see the culmination of that?" Julian sighed, a sound of pure exasperation. "Of course I do. But they really want to go to the party. Nate's cousins will be there, and Lily heard her friend Chloe from art class is going. Ethan invited her whole family." "So what are you saying?" I asked, though I already knew the sickening answer. "That you plan to take our children to a party instead of watching their mother graduate with distinction? Can't we compromise?" he suggested, his tone gratingly calm. "Maybe I take the kids to the party, and we all meet you at the Gilded Sparrow afterward to celebrate. Or I could come to the ceremony alone and drop the kids at Ethan's on the way." I stared at him, incredulous. "Do you hear yourself? This isn't a business negotiation. This is about being there for me. For one day." "You're being dramatic, Cora," he muttered. "It's just a ceremony. Just a ceremony." The exact words Ethan had used. As if my achievement was a footnote, a minor inconvenience in their weekend plans. 5 years, Julian, I said, my voice quivering. 5 years of missed bedtimes and studying until 2 in the morning. 5 years of you complaining that I was never around. 5 years of me carrying the weight of my own guilt on top of the exhaustion. And now that it's over, now that I'm asking for one day, one single afternoon off recognition, you're all too busy for me. "The kids should have a say," he countered weakly. "They're old enough to decide. Of course they'd choose a party with a rope swing over a graduation. That's why they have parents. To guide them. To teach them about commitment and sacrifice and love." The argument escalated. Nate and Lily, drawn by our raised voices, came downstairs. When they understood the conflict, they predictably sided with their father. Nate declared that graduations were lame, and Lily tearfully asked why I wanted to ruin their fun. I went to bed that night without eating, my stomach a tight knot of misery. Julian slept on the couch. As I lay awake, Staring at the shadows on the ceiling, a profound sadness washed over me. It wasn't just about the graduation anymore. It was about a fundamental disconnect, a chasm that had opened up between my life and theirs. The irony was devastating. I had pursued this degree for them, and in doing so, I had become invisible to them. I cried silently into my pillow, mourning not just the next day's empty celebration, but something deeper, something I couldn't yet name. My emerald green dress hung in the closet, a beautiful, lonely ghost. I woke to the pale gray light of a Setteridge morning, disoriented after only a few hours of restless sleep. For a fleeting moment, the weight of the previous night was gone, replaced by the muscle memory of excitement. Then it all came crashing back. Julian's side of the bed was empty and cold. Downstairs, the house was silent. On the kitchen counter, a single piece of paper was held down by the salt shaker. Took the kids to Ethan's early to help set up. We'll try to make it back for your ceremony. Congratulations. Jay. The note was a fresh wound. Not even a proper goodbye. I crumpled it and tossed it in the bin, my hands shaking as I made a cup of coffee. Despite the hollow ache in my chest, I moved through the day like an automaton. The hairstylist chattered away, oblivious to my silence. The makeup artist skillfully concealed the puffiness around my eyes, creating a mask of composure that felt utterly foreign. Back home, I slipped into the emerald dress. I looked at myself in the mirror, a stranger in a beautiful costume, and took a selfie. I posted it on social media with a generic, upbeat caption about achieving goals, tagging my family out of a strange mix of habit and defiance. The congratulatory comments began to roll in from friends, colleagues, and distant relatives. Everyone except the people who were supposed to be my world. I texted Julian one last time before I left. I'm heading to the ceremony now. Are you still planning to come? The three dots appeared, vanished, then reappeared. Finally, a reply. Nate took a bad fall running around. Nothing serious, but lots of tears. Might be late. Save us seats if you can. I didn't reply. There were no save seats. He knew that. It was just another excuse, another layer of insulation against the truth. The drive to the university was a blur. I parked and made my way to the auditorium, a solitary figure in a sea of celebrating families. I saw flowers and balloons, heard laughter and hugs. I kept my eyes fixed on the ground, found my place in the alphabetical lineup, and breathed. The procession into the vast hall began, the sound of pomp and circumstance swelling around me. From my seat on the stage, I scanned the audience, a foolish, irrational hope fluttering in my chest. The speeches began. The university president, the dean, a successful alumna who spoke of perseverance. Her words seemed to find me, to speak directly to the ache in my heart. When my department was called, I rose with my row. In that moment, waiting for my name, I made a decision. This moment was mine. I had earned it with my own sweat and tears. It belonged to me and to no one else. Cora Sterling, Master of Business Administration, with distinction. I walked across the stage with my head held high. I shook the dean's hand, accepted the diploma case, and moved the tassel on my cap from right to left. The applause was polite, anonymous. There were no cheers from the crowd with my name in them, no whistles, no familiar faces beaming with pride. Just the quiet, formal recognition of a milestone reached. Returning to my seat, I felt a strange calm descend. The hurt was still there, a low thrum beneath the surface, but it had solidified into something else. Resolve. When the ceremony ended, I stood on the periphery of the lawn, watching the joyful chaos of families reuniting. I checked my phone. Nothing from Julian. I scrolled through social media, and there it was, a photo posted by Ethan. My entire family, Julian, Nate, Lily, my parents all smiling, gathered around a crackling fire pit, roasting marshmallows. The timestamp showed it had been posted 30 minutes earlier, right in the middle of my graduation. Something inside me fractured. I found a quiet, secluded bench behind the science building, hidden by overgrown rhododendrons, and let myself cry. Ugly, heaving sobs that racked my body and smeared the careful mask of my makeup. When the tears finally subsided, I felt empty. I decided to cancel the reservation at the Gilded Sparrow. There was no one to celebrate with. As I pulled up the restaurant's number, a text message from Julian appeared. "We need to talk urgently." And then I saw it. The thing that made my blood run cold. 45 missed calls. All from Julian. All within the last hour. My heart hammered against my ribs. I had silenced my phone for the ceremony. In my grief, I hadn't thought to check my call log. 45 missed calls could only mean one thing. An emergency. With trembling fingers, I called him back. He answered on the first ring. "Cora, thank God." His voice was tight with panic. "I've been trying to reach you for an hour." "What is it?" I demanded, already walking quickly toward the parking garage. "Is everyone okay?" "It's Nate," Julian said, the words tumbling out. He was on that new rope swing Ethan put up showing off for his cousins. He fell. "We're at Setteridge General. The doctor thinks his arm is broken." "I'll be right there," I said, breaking into a clumsy run in my heels. "Is he in a lot of pain?" "They gave him something, but he's pretty shaken up. He keeps asking for you." That last sentence landed with a complex mix of emotions. My maternal heart ached to get to my son. But a small, bitter voice in my head whispered, Now he needs me." I drove to the hospital in a daze, my beautiful dress feeling like a cruel joke. The graduation gown lay in a heap on the passenger seat, the cap tossed in the back. At the hospital, I rushed into the emergency room, a chaotic symphony of beeps and hushed voices. I found them in Cubicle 7. Nate was on the gurney, his face pale and tear-streaked, his right arm in a temporary splint. And gathered around him, a tableau of concern, was my entire family: Julian, Lily, my parents, and Ethan. They all turned as I entered, their expressions a mixture of relief, guilt, and a pity that set my teeth on edge. "Mom," Nate cried out, his voice small. "You came." I went aside, all the day's hurt momentarily eclipsed by my love for him. "Of course I came, sweetheart. How are you feeling?" A doctor explained it was a clean fracture of the radius. Painful, but it would heal. My mother fussed over Nate, telling him how brave he was. Ethan stepped forward, his face a mask of contrition. "Thank God you got here, Corey. The little man's been asking for you nonstop." His casual tone, the easy assumption that we were all just a family rallying in a crisis, was the final straw. "Thank God I got here?" I repeated, my voice dangerously quiet. As opposed to where I was before? Graduating. Alone. While my entire family was at a party. A thick, uncomfortable silence fell. Julian shot me a warning look, but the dam had broken. I just spent the most important day of my professional life completely on my own, I continued, my voice trembling but clear. No husband, no children, no parents. Not a single text message of congratulations, because a rope swing and a pizza oven were more important than 5 years of my life. "Cora," my father began, his tone placating. "This is hardly the time or place." "When would be a better time, Dad?" I shot back, tears blurring my vision. "When I'm back to being the responsible, serious one who quietly handles everything. When I'm back to putting everyone else first while none of you can spare a single afternoon for me." My mother looked genuinely bewildered. "Honey, we didn't realize it meant this much to you." "It was just a ceremony." Just a ceremony. The phrase echoed in the sterile room, a refrain of dismissal. Julian stepped forward, placing a hand on my arm. "Cora, you're upset, and you have every right to be. But Nate needs us to be calm right now." I looked at my son, watching this drama unfold with wide, anxious eyes. He was right. This wasn't Nate's fault. I took a deep breath, compartmentalizing my rage as I had done so many times before, and turned my attention back to my son. When the nurse came to take Nate for casting, I went with him. As we walked down the hall, he leaned against me. "I'm sorry I missed your graduation, Mom," he whispered. "I really wanted to go to the party, and Dad said it would be okay." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "It's not your fault, sweetie. This is about the adults." But you're sad, he stated, a simple fact. Yes, I admitted. I am sad. But I'm also very, very proud of myself. And I hope someday you'll understand why today was so important. He nodded, his young face serious. I'm proud of you too, Mom. Even if I didn't see it. His words were the first true acknowledgement I had received all day. They were a tiny, precious gift. When we returned, my parents and Ethan were gone. Julian said they'd gone to the cafeteria. We can take him home now, Julian said, handing me discharge papers. I'll take him, I said. You can get the prescription. Cora, he began, about today. Not now, I cut him off. Not in front of Nate. Just then, my phone rang. It was my colleague, Megan, who had promised to cheer for me. Cora, where are you? I looked for you after. Megan, I'm so sorry, I said, the story tumbling out. I'm at the hospital. Nate had an accident. Oh my God, is he okay? Her concern was immediate, genuine. Do you need anything? Food? Company? Someone to yell at your husband for you, she added, trying to lighten the mood. Her simple, unconditional support brought fresh tears to my eyes. Actually, I said, would you mind coming over later? I could really use a friend. I'll bring wine and lasagna, she said without hesitation. Text me your address. When I hung up, Julian was watching me. Who is that? Megan, from work, I said pointedly. She came to my graduation, since no one else did. She's bringing dinner. My parents and Ethan returned, and we parted awkwardly in the parking lot. I drove home with Julian, the silence in the car a heavy, suffocating blanket. At home, I settled Nate on the couch. Julian hovered, waiting for the inevitable. I'm going to change, I said. Then we need to talk. Upstairs, I peeled off the emerald dress. It felt tainted. I put on my softest pajamas and washed the tear-streaked makeup from my face. When I came back down, Julian was in the kitchen. I know you're angry, he began. Angry doesn't even begin to cover it, Julian, I said, my voice low. I feel erased. By you most of all. He had the grace to look ashamed. I made a terrible mistake. I didn't realize. How could you not realize? I asked. I talked about it for months. I made you promise. I know. I'm so sorry. I thought I don't know what I thought. What do you want from me? He finally asked, his voice cracking. How do I fix this? I looked at him, the man I had loved for 15 years, and felt a vast, weary distance. I don't know if you can fix it right now. I need time. I need space. What does that mean? It means I'm going to stay at the hotel I booked for my parents. Just for a week. I need to think. Cora, you can't. Nate has a broken arm. Nate has a father, I replied, my voice hard. A father who is apparently capable of making decisions for the family on his own. You can manage for a week. The doorbell rang. It was Megan with lasagna, wine, and a graduation gift, a beautiful leather portfolio embossed with my initials. We are all so proud of you at the office, she said, giving me a fierce hug. You earned this. I cried again, this time from gratitude. This was all I had wanted. Simple, honest recognition. The next morning, I packed a small bag. I explained to the kids that I wasn't leaving because of them, but that I needed some quiet time for myself. I checked into the Hawthorne Hotel, into the suite I had so lovingly booked for my parents. The irony was not lost on me. As I closed the door on the quiet, empty room, I didn't feel guilt. I felt a strange, terrifying, and exhilarating sense of liberation. For the first time in a very long time, I was putting myself first. The diploma lay on the nightstand, a quiet testament not just to an education completed, but to a new one, just beginning. The week at the hotel was a revelation. It was a space of profound quiet, broken only by the hum of the city below and the flurry of apologetic texts and voicemails from my family. My parents called, their voices thick with a remorse that felt genuine if belated. Ethan sent an absurdly large floral arrangement with a note that simply said, I was a jerk. I'm sorry. Julian called every evening, his tone shifting from defensive to desperate as the days passed. I spent the time not in anger, but in reflection. I took long walks along the riverfront, my diploma me actual, hard-won diploma now resting in the leather portfolio Megan had given me. I sat in cafes, journaling for the first time in years, untangling the complex knot of my own feelings. I realized that the graduation day fiasco wasn't an isolated incident, but the culmination of years of quietly accepting a supporting role in my own life. My MBA hadn't just given me knowledge of finance and marketing, it had given me a language for my own value. I visited Nate every day, bringing him milkshakes and helping him figure out how to play video games one-handed. I took Lily out for hot chocolate, reassuring her that families, like all living things, sometimes needed to prune their branches to grow stronger. I called Mr. Harrison and formally accepted the senior analyst position. By the end of the week, I knew what I needed to do. I drove home not with a list of demands, but with a newfound sense of my own center of gravity. Julian was waiting for me on the porch. The house was immaculate. He had hired a cleaning service, a small but significant admission of the invisible labor I performed daily. We sat at the kitchen table, and for the first time in what felt like forever, we truly talked. He didn't make excuses. He listened. "I need to be a priority in my own life, Julian," I said, my voice steady. "And I need my partner to see me as one too." We agreed on tangible changes. A shared family calendar for all appointments and chores. A weekly budget meeting. A commitment to a non-negotiable date night. It wasn't about punishing him, it was about rebalancing the scales of our partnership. The conversations with my parents and Ethan were harder. I met with them individually. I returned my mother's check, explaining that my hurt couldn't be soothed with money. I told them that my love for them was unconditional, but my presence at every family gathering was not. I would no longer contort my life to fit into the spaces they left for me. Boundaries, I was learning, were not walls to keep people out, but lines drawn in the sand to protect the sacred ground of my own self-respect. A month later, Ethan did something that stunned me. He threw a small, elegant dinner party at his restaurant. The guest of honor was me. He invited my closest friends, Megan, and a few others from work and our family. He raised a glass and gave a toast, not to his own success, but to my perseverance, my intelligence, and my strength. My parents were there, their pride in me finally clear and unambiguous in their eyes. They presented me with a beautifully framed professional photograph of me in my cap and gown, smiling as I received my diploma. It wasn't a magic wand. The patterns of a lifetime don't vanish overnight. But it was a beginning. A conscious, deliberate effort to see me, to celebrate me. Today, my diploma hangs on the wall of my new office, the corner one with a view of the river. It's a symbol of a degree earned, but it's also a reminder of something far more valuable. It reminds me that my worth is not contingent on applause from the audience. It reminds me that sometimes, the most painful moments of abandonment are the very things that force us to stand on our own 2 feet, to finally claim our place on the stage of our own lives. The empty seats at my graduation had felt like a profound rejection, but in their hollowness, I had found the space to build a foundation of self-worth that no one could ever take away.